Welcome to another round of City of Heroes Homecoming. I'm going to pick up where I left off with my other character so I can finish off the Skull's Drug Ring arc. But before I do that, I want to run you through a few of my characters. Well, quick overview of my various characters. I have 119 characters on the Torchbearer server in Homecoming. If you've watched a few of my videos, you're already familiar with Randall Gray. And this is his wife. Just as Randall is based largely on my father, Charlene Gray is based largely on my mother. The stuffed animal that she's based off of is this adorable little beaver stuffed animal. And the character was a phenomenal cook. Now, my mother is a very excellent cook herself, though her focus in her life has been archaeology. The storyline for Charlene here is that she has been infested with an energy space alien, and it has modified her body back to a physical prime. For the book I'm writing, finding out what happened to her is part of it's what starts the plot. Even as I was writing it, it wound up taking a turn I did not expect, and I wound up telling an entirely different story. This is Ezekiel Dirge, Randall Gray's best friend. He also is infested with an energy alien being. For City of Heroes, they are similar. For my story setting, they are very different creatures. Fun thing, it was on Ezekiel I found out that we can actually recolor the Warshade powers. In the final days of the Paragon run City of Heroes, we couldn't do that. There are still some things that we still can't recolor. For instance, there's a summon ability that the Warshades can do. It still comes out as a black-purple fog. But it's kind of neat watching the black-purple fog shoot out black-orange fog at enemies. This is Roland, the middle child of Randall and Charlene. He's not actually based on anybody. Not me, not my brothers. Well, I suppose I could say that he does take inspiration from my little brother. His civilian job is that he's a plumber and electrician, which is something my brother does. The stuffed animal he's based off of is this little teddy bear that we got when we were when we went to a zoo in, I think it was Tallahassee. Just an adorable little bear that we called him Round. Cedric is based off of another gunned Snuffles bear that at the time we called Junior. He also incorporates a lot of the aspects of my older siblings and cousins, just all rolled into one lunatic character. And Matic is his best friend. Whatever I couldn't fit into Cedric for personality, I fit into Matt. He's a little more serious, but no less fearless. Petrothrax is a dragon. And for a long time, she was Matt's motorcycle. That is a very convoluted story that I do not feel like getting into right now. Sadly, we can't have motorcycles in City of Heroes. It's the one thing I lament the most. Sarah is Roland's little sister. Despite her waifish appearance, she's one of the hardest hitting characters I've got. I originally built her as a mind control sonic resonance controller because at the time I was just playing around with power sets. And I'd already made an empathy character and I didn't feel like making empathy again. Sonic resonance struck me as a power set that I wasn't seeing very often. I have hang-ups about mind control. It is the least controlling of the control powers. So I didn't want to just go through that slog all over again. A friend recommended that I make this build, the Psychic Blast Sonic Resonance Corruptor. Get the same support capabilities, but hit a little harder. She's been a very enjoyable character. Joe is her husband. Back in the Paragon days, he was an assault rifle devices blaster that I just kept slapping more toggles and more toggles upon until he was about as close to a scrapper blaster as I could get. But with the advent of Sentinels on the Homecoming servers, I was able to just make him an assault rifle willpower Sentinel. Get the exact same effects that I was looking for. Sadly, he loses the ability to snipe enemies, but it's a fair enough trade. Sheldon Wallace is based off of a hand puppet, specifically my hand. My brother and I, we would do imagination sessions and our little games. We would feature birds. We would just take our hands and put all the tips together, make little beak-like I don't know how to even describe it. With all of your fingertips and your thumb together, it's like a bird's beak. Sheldon was like a partial fist, just curling all of your fingers up against your palm, and then curling your thumb up underneath the fingertips. It's really weird to describe. But hey, when you're poor, you find ways to entertain yourself. Among the hand puppet characters, Sheldon was the smart guy. And so he remains the smart guy among these characters. I was so enraged when one of the characters on The Big Bang Theory was named Sheldon. And I got even more enraged when he became the breakout character. Powerbreaker is a character I made entirely in City of Heroes. I had no basis for him. He wound up being an exploration of what happens if a hero arrests a guy but realizes too late that was the wrong guy. And Randall wound up arresting this guy. He was just a package boy for the mafia. He went to make a delivery, and the contact he was meeting, he found dead. Randall happened upon them, thought that Breaker, Sam Harris is his name, had stabbed the guy, turned him into the cops, but then, despite trying to convince the jury that he didn't think that the guy actually did it, now that he was thinking about the situation, the jury still convicted him, because that tends to happen in comic book stories. And sadly, it also happens in real life. Sometimes the jury just goes with their gut, and gut instincts can be wrong. When in prison, he got shanked, and a major mega corporation offered him an experimental treatment to save his life. And the result was a nanotech cyborg. He's had some interesting adventures. And his current iteration, he's working on superpowered boxing matches. Frankly, I don't know why you don't see that more often in superhero stories. I mean, geez, we've got pro wrestling, and those guys are practically walking, talking comic book characters themselves. The Undertaker spent the better part of 3 decades pretending to be a freaking zombie, with another guy hopping onto that storyline and pretending to be a demon. This next one is one of my favorite characters, just because she's just so cute. I made Snugglepurr because I was like, I want to make a cat girl. A lot of people made cat girls. And Snugglepurr just loves these tiny bears. She loves to hug them. She loves to cuddle them. In the story I've written, she has like 50 that she keeps. The tiny bears, by the way, were made by Sheldon. That's the first one there. Felix. That's another one. I think I named him Caramel. Yeah, that's Caramel. Most of them use food names. These two are Fudge and Brownie. Snuggle, a lot of Snuggles' different outfits have different bears. In the Paragon days, she was a spine super reflexes scrapper. I was not a fan, but I also didn't want to. There were no other sets, and I was really, really disappointed with how Claws looked. Here, she's got Savage Melee. She actually attacks with her claws. So she actually fights like a cat girl. Riot 22 is a character that I have taken back from a former friend. The same goes for Riot 13. Riot characters are androids that were made by Sheldon Wallace. Mostly they're an excuse for me to experiment with various power sets, and I don't have a character in mind yet. Riot 22 is a dual pistols force field corruptor. Back in the Paragon days, she was a defender, because at the time she was made, we still couldn't have side switching. And if you had a corruptor, it was going to be a long, even when we did have side switching, it was going to be a long time before you could have a corruptor move over to the blue side. It was shortly before Paragon shut down that we were able to make characters of any alignment, any build. You could go into City of Heroes with a Mastermind or City of Villains with a Tanker. Nothing, the mechanics weren't stopping us anymore. Anyway, the original idea for Riot 22 was that she was an android using 22 caliber pistols to fight crime and force fields to keep people protected. I'm maintaining the 22 caliber, but backstory is more that it's nanotech that she's firing. Riot 13 keeps himself put together with garbage. A lot of his outfits really make use of the asymmetry options. This particular outfit doesn't display it, but he's got outfits where he's got different gloves and different boots. Using bioarmor, it really exemplifies the difference in appearance. King Slater is based off of one of my friends and fellow former backyard wrestler. He was a stone armor tanker back in the Paragon days, and I decided to keep him that when I remade him. They recently made some changes for stone armor, which have made playing him a lot less cumbersome, and I almost got him to level 50 before they made those changes. One of the biggest problems at the time is that War Mace is just a really, really energy expensive power set. Johnny Knack is based off of another friend, also another former backyard wrestler, old high school friends. I've never really been sure what powers to give this guy. I mean, when we did the backyard wrestling, his character was a bit of an acrobat, but really he was more of a showman. When I found out that Martial Assault had throwing stars, I decided to go ahead and make him as close to his original, which was an Illusions Ice controller. But now, it's Ice Control, Martial Assault. The idea is that the ice is being made by a wand, And the martial assault is him using his acrobatic attacks. It's very similar to martial arts. And the throwing stars are throwing cards. He's a card shark. What can I say? Robert Pierce is based off of a friend who once asked me to make a character of him. And he couldn't figure... When I asked him what did he want to do, his answer was, I don't know, summon demons or something. He asked me that 2 weeks before Paragon released that as a power set. So, Robbie, here you are. My demon summoning, fire radiating mastermind. Eisenherz is a hero in the same vein as Ardent Protector or Argent Justice, meaning he's one of the 4-color heroes, though his focus is more on magic armor. Night Wraith is another 4-color hero. She's something of an homage to Nightwing. King Leo is a master martial artist, a character that I realized, despite claims of finding balance, it's really hard to think that these guys are finding balance when their focus is learning how to best beat the shit out of someone else. I'm sure there's a paradox in there. But King Leo is and that's actually his name. It's not a title. His name is King, and his last name is like Leonidas. And he just goes by King Leo. But he's the mentor of Kipling Dirge, or was the mentor of Kipling Dirge. Kip is one of the sons of Ezekiel, and he leads another group that is on its own adventures, rather than Randall, who leads Gray's army. Kipling leads Blue Talon. What was it? Security? Investigations? Yeah, it's investigations. I've got 119 characters and a bunch of different organizations between them. Pop Roxy, Roxanne Fenton, used to be his liaison with Vigilance. Now they're dating. Cortland Simmons, he was the magic expert for the group, in much the same way that Sheldon was the technology expert. All of their friends would bring all of their weird problems. Hey, can you figure out this tech? Hey, can you figure out this magic? Which often would cause the two of them to rub their temples and be like, can't you figure this out yourself? Corey was one of my first blasters. And I went into the game going, you know what? I'm going to mix fire and ice. And it was probably one of the best things I ever did for a blaster. Nestor was my first defender. Kipling's brother And where Kipland is a hard-hitting scrapper, Nestor heals people. That is what the empathy power set does. It is all about healing people, and it has not many buffs. But it does have one really, really nice buff. I hope when they come around to retooling empathy to make it a little more effective, because there are other power sets that heal. Other powers, like, for instance, Robert here. He's got powers that heal, that do the exact same thing that empathy does. A radiating heal and a single target heal. Fantastic. He also has powers that boost people's damage resistance. Other powers that devastate the enemy's armor. Thermal radiation is an amazing set. However, Nestor can slap Fortitude on a tanker and make him hit as hard as a blaster. He can also make it so that everybody is regenerating so fast they just can't be beaten. Empathy is nice. I just wish it had a little more oomph to it. Riot 66, another one of the Riot androids. One of the first Riot androids. An energy electricity blaster. Not much to him. He goes into a fight and starts gunning everybody down. I really liked playing with this character if I was teamed up with a tanker or something. Duos were fun. Blizzard Front, where Corey is fire and ice, Blizzard Front is just straight ice. He is practically Sub-Zero, and one of his alternate outfits is a blue suited ninja. His best friend is Ashen Roast, where Blizzard is a squishy blaster, Ashen is a squishy tank. Fire Yara is not really great at being a tanker set. However, where it's not great at being a tanker set, it is fantastic at making a tanker that can do damage. Lots of damage. All he's got to do is get the attention of the enemy, get them nice and close, and bonfire, and suddenly you're surrounded by bodies. James Baker, Raging James, based more directly on my little brother. Or more accurately, based on his character when we did Backyard Wrestling. His backstory is that he's got a pair of magic skulls that he wears, one on his shoulder, one on his chest. They used to be pieces of Viking armor, stylized Viking armor, for the intimidation value. But the rest of the armor has been lost to time, and all that remains are these two big, clunky skulls. But that's not what's really protecting him. What's protecting him is the electricity. And it grants him super strength, and he's got lightning coursing through him. And he is one of the best brute builds I've ever played. Draven Erickson, based off of one of my best friends. And again, his Backyard Wrestling character. I couldn't just call him Draven. Again, mostly because everybody had, all of the good single name names have been taken. I'm sure there's a Draven running around there somewhere. So, to be a little more on the nose, I named him Draven Erickson instead of Eric Draven. He uses a shadow black broadsword and dark armor. The implication is that those wings he's wearing there are an extension of the magic weapon that he uses, which is simultaneously protecting him and serving as his weapon. So the black sword can change into whatever shape he wants. It can turn into the black wings that he's got here, or it turns into the dark armor that he's wearing. Well, that wreaths around him. It's like a black smoke. Solo Striker is based off of Draven's cousin and King Slater's brother. Same relationship that they maintain in my fiction. Where a lot of my other characters are where a lot of my other melee characters are scrappers or tankers or brutes, Solo is a stalker. Because I thought that matched a lot of the things that Solo did back when we did Backyard Wrestling. He was great at doing ambush storylines. Azure Druid is based off of an old Halloween costume that I did back when I was, I think, 4. Supposed to be a blue druid, but oddly enough, somebody already beat me to that. So that's funny. A storm summoning electrical blast defender. Oddly enough, one of the most powerful defenders that you can find. They just debuff the hell out of everybody around them. Not much buffing for the team. And one heal that's not that great, but it helps. Then you just summon a thunderstorm and just zap the hell out of all the enemies. Lucas Baker, based off of my character in Backyard Wrestling. Dual Blades Regeneration Scrapper. The in-joke there is that I, being the lightest guy when we were doing Backyard Wrestling, was often used as the ragdoll for all of our practice choreography. So I was the one being thrown around the ring that we built. Amy Taylor is a character that I made up. She's Kip's old high school girlfriend. She went through a lot of rough patches. But she's doing a lot better now, and she wants to make something of herself, so she's working with Kip's group as she build-wise, she's actually a much better version of Baker here. Both dual blades scrappers. She uses willpower, where Lucas uses regeneration. And as you've seen with willpower before, it's got damage resistance, it's got vectored regeneration, it's got its own regeneration. Regen is just regen and click heals. It is a very difficult set to get working. Dale Sims is based off of the Backyard Wrestling Group's referee character. Funny thing about this guy, he got a huge boost early on. Just a moment, my dog is asking for a treat. So, I really wanted to remake this character early on, and I don't quite know why. It just occurred to me. So, I made him. Force Field Beam Rifle Defender. Originally, he was a Force Field Sonic Blast Defender back in the Paragon days. But I slapped this character together, gained 1 level on him, and one of the game's raids was announced by the player base. I jumped in on that and racked up 23 more levels in a half hour. So that was fun. Force Field is one of the better sets for defenders. You just massively ramp up other players' defense. Riot 10 is an interesting character. Not so much because of him. He's an empathy mastermind, but the robotics. The robots, I decided to go with an idea that his robots are actually miniature mechs. And they're being piloted by the tiny bears. Riot 24, this guy's been starting to creep me out lately. Like, when I play as the characters, I kind of get into their heads, into their mindsets. Riot 24 is a very sullen character. He's an assault rifle energy manipulation blaster. Energy manipulation is one of the more unusual secondary sets for blasters because it has a set of powers that allow you to boost your damage, boost your range, and boost the secondary effects of your attacks. And on an assault rifle, that turns the full auto attack into a sniper shot full auto. You are blazing away from a very far distance, and it is kind of scary. The idea is that he's basically a walking railgun. Riot 88, one of my excuse characters. I had an idea for a power set combo, but couldn't think of a character to slap it on. So, he wound up being an invulnerability, radiation, melee tanker. Mostly I wanted to see what radiation melee could do, and it had been a while since I'd run an invulnerability tanker. As such, his personality is largely trying to find his place. But part of the reason why I got him paired up here with 24 is because he's tempering his brother's behavior, getting him to be a better person. Glacial Spring is the boyfriend of Blizzard Front. He's a Water Blast character. He's based on the Water Blast character that I made in the Paragon days, but I couldn't remember the character's character. One of those moments where I was like, man, I should have just made this a Riot character. Glacial Spring, on the other hand, being Blizzard Front's boyfriend, I'm able to more readily remember who he is as a character. And I can also get into his head about the weird struggle that he's having, being Hispanic, Catholic, grappling with his homosexuality, the fact that he's got these weird powers. Catholics have problems with things that are outside of their rigid look at life. Things are supposed to be this way. Why are you not this way? Yep, he's dealing with that. Blizzard Front keeps telling him to just forget all of that and just make his own identity, but it's a struggle. Tyler Wilde, another character made up in the game. I didn't have this character in the Paragon days. I made his power sets through an idea. Shield defense has an aura that boosts damage depending on how many enemies are around you. Kinetic melee has a damage boost power that the more you hit, the more damage you do. I wanted to see the two put together and see what the effect would be. I'm not entirely disappointed. The idea for Tyler is that he was a happy-go-lucky guy in high school, but then his senior year, that was when the aliens attacked, and he watched his family get evaporated right in front of him and suffered severe injuries himself. He's been left in a state of depression ever since. He wound up meeting the wrong people who gave him superpowers and technology to strike back against the aliens still in humanity's midst, and wound up fighting Kip. But here, he's past that. Now he's working with his old friends. I made up Tyrion Flint the moment Homecoming made Seismic Blast. This character is just phenomenally fun to play because his Tier 9 blast power brings a big fiery rock out of the sky to slam into enemies and just send them hurtling into the distance. I hit one enemy who then slammed into the ceiling and skidded along it to fall at our feet. I was playing with a group of friends, and I could not stop laughing for a solid 2 minutes. Daniel Taylor is one of my first Arachno soldiers. His build is one that I can only describe as Rambo. You're stealthy, you got some melee attacks that hit really hard, and you can use an assault rifle. There are other ways to build Arachno soldiers. I have not tried to build another type of Bane Spider, though. Cassandra Kincaid is his girlfriend slash fiancée. They work for an organization that has them on the run a lot, so it's kind of hard for them to officially tie the knot. She's a Night Widow. Night Widows are a bit difficult to get working. They're supposed to be a type of support stalker. It's very endurance heavy. They can hit really hard for a few seconds, but then they need to take a breather. Catherine Kincaid is not Cassandra's mother. Catherine's actually her aunt. Catherine Kincaid is the mother of Nestor and Kipland, and the ex-wife of Ezekiel. She works for an organization of all-female assassins, but she got to a point where she realized she didn't like working with them anymore, so she joined the monster hunting group that is the Hunting Lodge. Kodiak! Chaz, it's your character. The guy who has 2 guns and can jump real high. When he asked me to make his character, that was the only thing he asked for. Jokes aside, this is another one of my favorite characters to play. It's just really fun. I really love blending dual pistols and martial combat. Mark Shadow, based off of another one of the Backyard Wrestlers. Only this one doesn't really have anything to do with the wrestler's persona. Well, ish. The wrestler's persona was the assassin. Okay. So that's what this character basically is. The idea, assault rifle, traps, corruptor. His abilities are debilitating. So he can fight monsters and superhumans and come out of it alive. Mindy Hargrove, another former member of the same sorority that Catherine is a member of. She is the fiancée of Nestor. A strained relationship since they can hardly ever see each other. Where Catherine is dual pistols ninja, Mindy is assault rifle ninja. I made a lot of assault rifle characters, including Granger. Granger is my first experiment with the idea of foregoing a bunch of the assault rifle powers. So he has absolutely no flame attacks. He doesn't have buckshot. He's running with nothing but the single target assault rifle attacks because he's a sniper. And I was shocked how effective that was. I need to move these characters. So the Black Hat Regulator. He's my Batman. Some people would say that he's an alternative version of the Thomas Wayne Batman. Dual pistols and vulnerability sentinel. So the idea is he uses 2 guns and body armor. And they're not wrong. But the other thing is that the reason why he got into vigilantism is because his son was murdered and he felt the authorities didn't do a good enough job investigating or prosecuting. So now he uses his wealth and his weapons company to take the fight to the world's criminals. And this is Jeffrey Dimeval. I don't want to explain the joke. Well, I will explain Dimeval. So, since he's the regulator's butler-ish, and the character is based off of Bruce Wayne, the regulator is Bartholomew Walters, BW. But Jeffrey Dimeval. Alfred's last name is Pennyworth, the worth of a penny. Dimeval, the value of a dime. There's another joke as to why I called him Jeffrey. 90s kids will understand. Architect is a character I made entirely at random. Threw on some power sets that I hadn't really played around with that much. A friend wanted my help in redesigning one of his supergroup bases, so I threw this character together, named him Architect, which gave him trouble because he sat there going, I keep looking at his name and keep thinking of calling him Architect. I'm like, that's exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it. He's been a fun character to play. Electrical Affinity is an interesting set. Ambassador Kernash. A space alien. Think of him like a Wookiee. I really love how I've been able to play around with his right arm. Most masterminds stay out of the thick of the fight, but the way I designed Kernash, he always gets into the thick of it, and Beast Mastery is probably one of the best sets for having a melee-based mastermind. Gundus Alepha, where Randall's personality is based off of my old teddy bear. Gundus is based a lot more directly on my old teddy bear. A big, powerful bear creature who wields a big-ass weapon and beats the shit out of everyone he gets a hold of. Highguard Har4. This guy's actually based off of a character somebody else made. I can't remember who it was, but they saw some of my terrestrian characters and they wanted to make one themselves. So they asked if they could make a character that had tiger striping, and I was like, sure. So this character is kind of a tribute to that. He serves as the High Guard of Ambassador Kernash. Gundus is the security commander, but High Guard Har4 is Kernash's personal bodyguard. Then there's Gresher Garal, Beam Rifle Energy Aura Sentinel. He's a soldier. Just a soldier through and through. Isaac Havernav, Sheldon Wallace's cousin. For a long time he was a villain, but he was just so funny. It's just so funny to get into his cackling mad mentality. It was infectious. And eventually I just made it that he was put on house arrest, unable to touch technology for several years, and playing around with Sheldon's tiny bears eventually made him turn a new leaf. Cathban Rhodite. She's Har4's subordinate. Both of them are staff-wielding combatants. She's more scrapper, he's more tank. So he can take more punishment, she can dish out more damage. The Riot Dreadnought. One of the later made androids. The original story, he was stranded in an alternate Earth and didn't really care about anybody in that alternate Earth. There's one storyline where you have to activate a neutron bomb and all of the rebels are telling you, now this is a terrible thing, having to activate a neutron bomb, and this character was basically like, Yeah, I heard you the first time. It's gonna kill a lot of people. I don't care. That just sounds like a good day to me. Now he works with the Terrestrian Alliance as an ambassador for Earth. In case the red, white, and blue color scheme doesn't tip you off, he's a bit of a jingoist. Demon Crow. Because the Terrestrian Alliance has spies. A lot of the inspiration for this character comes from YouTube videos of crows that talk. Look that up. Be creeped out. Bloodwing is Demon Crow's subordinate. Bloodwing doesn't like Earth. He kind of wishes that the Terrestrian Alliance would finish their job and move on. And no, they're not trying to conquer Earth or anything like that. The Terrestrians are too small a power player. They've got a couple of planets. Really what they've been doing is selling out their services as bounty hunters, arbiters. They have no personal stakes in any politics, so they offer a third party look into what's going on. In this particular instance, though, they were pursuing the aliens that attacked Earth, not the City of Heroes aliens, because that's its own story. No, for the book I'm writing, the Terrestrians are pursuing the Decrete, because the Decrete attacked their worlds and failed, but did enough damage to piss off the Terrestrians. I should move Toycraft. I had to settle on the name Toycraft. Somebody already had Toy Box, somebody already had Toy Maker, somebody already had Toy Chest. She's a robots traps mastermind. She summons a lot of different things. And all of her renamable summons are named after classic toys. Dolly Monkey for the Barrel of Monkeys. Action Figure for action figures. I think I renamed the acid mortar the Easy Bake Oven. The force field generator is called the Beach Ball. Franklin Wellington is a magician. He's around 200 years old. He runs Wellington Acquisitions. He's like an evil Indiana Jones. More like a greedy Indiana Jones. He finds relics and artifacts and sells them. However, if he finds relics and artifacts that are too dangerous to be out in the public, he finds a safe place to keep them, away from prying eyes. And he studies ways to counter the effects of those artifacts. The destruction of the planet is bad for business. Kyokujutsu is the second in command. I always wanted to have a ninja's mastermind and see how it works out. They die quick. Normally, I have my masterminds rename their minions so that there's some personality to the minions. I just had her rename all of her ninjas based on Japanese numbers. Eric Fulkerson is another arachno soldier, this time a crab spider. I actually have two crab spiders. Fulkerson leans more into the abilities of the arms. Helena Koch is a character I made when I was a member of a storytelling group on DeviantArt. Soviet Superwoman is someone I made a friendship with early on. That was fun. It was fun telling stories involving Soviet Superwoman's enemy faction, a group called the Fourth Reich. However, I didn't want to just keep ripping up characters that Soviet Superwoman was probably already making stories about. And there was one character that stood out that they didn't seem to be doing anything with. So I asked, who is this character? They were like, oh, that's Helena Koch. She's the Supreme Soldier. And so I wrote up a story featuring the character. People liked it. It wound up giving the character more personality. Soviet Superwoman wound up writing more stories featuring Helena Koch and wound up turning her into a cyborg with a snake's head. I wish I could give this character that cobra head. That was inspired. However, I'm stuck with this. It's close. It's very nice. Working with Wellington Acquisitions, she's had her more human features restored. She's still a cyborg. There's not anything anyone can do about that. But she can play around more with the appearance. She's an assault rifle poison corruptor. I really love playing around with the poison abilities on this character. I also gave her some other abilities like the fighting pool, so while most corruptors are trying to stay away from the fight, she actually gets in close and can haul off and just rock someone in the face as hard as she can. It's very satisfying. Nukas is a character that I made back in the Paragon days. He was an assault rifle radiation corruptor. At the time, I wanted to make more bad guys. When I remade him with a beam rifle. And his story here is that he's using a clone body. Anybody who knew my writing in Angel Falls probably knows what happened to his original body. Simply put, it got blown up. Riot 84 is the evil riot, although lately it's been having something of a change of heart, working with Wellington Acquisitions and getting away from strictly black and white thinking is helping with that. He no longer wants to destroy all humans, but he also doesn't want humans to have sway over him. Michelle Fisher is one of Helena Koch's underlings, a member of a special squad. She never really got into the ideals of the Fourth Reich, but they did help her out when she killed her abusive husband. So she felt she owed it to them. She's been developing a relationship with a Nigerian soldier who also got tied into the Fourth Reich, but more as a mercenary. For the writing, whenever they would start spewing racist crap, he would just shake his head at them and be like, "Yeah, if you want to fight me, I will just stab you." Iron Smoke is a character I've created recently, actually. I came up with the idea before I put him in the game. He and Stonehands are good friends. They were also trained by the same organization that King Leo worked for, called the House of the Iron Hand. Inspired from an episode of, what was it called? The Unit. Really bizarre episode where Dennis Haysbert's character has to recover the Spear of Destiny, and he ends up finding this warrior cult. And is there anything more comic book than that? So I've got the House of the Iron Hand basically being a warrior cult. If it involves combat, they incorporate it into their group. They've got different people mastering different things: pistols, rifles, martial arts. They've got magicians, they've got normals. If you got the will to fight, you can be a member of the House of the Iron Hand. And if you want an idea of how bad that can get, I recommend you watch Cobra Kai. So Iron Smoke is a stalker. His buddy Stonehands is a tanker. And the two of them actually make their debut appearance in my literature in the book I'm writing. Samantha is another widow. Her origin is in a story. I needed an assassin to try to kill Roland. And that's what she did. He figured out what she was going to do, so he caught her by the... He caught her fist, and one of her spikes shot out and stabbed through his hand. He then proceeded to pummel her, and some of the tiny bears ended up attacking her. And the adventure went on. She ended up getting hired by Wellington Acquisitions after they broke her out of jail. It was Eric that broke her out of jail. Franklin got angry and realized that could draw unwanted attention to his organization, so he blasted Eric something good, and then had a chat with Samantha asking if she'd like to work for him. The Red Doctor, Dual Pistols, Pain Dominator. Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist trying to save lives. It's not so much that his methods are unethical, it's that he doesn't see any problem with committing criminal acts to acquire the funding he needs. Samuel Tuku. That'd be the guy dating Michelle Fisher. He's become an interesting character. An assault rifle ninjutsu sentinel. Like I said, I have a lot of assault rifle characters. However, this is as close as I could approximate a council uniform. And he has several outfits that do the same thing for other groups. He's got an outfit to look like a member of Longbow, an outfit to look like a member of the Malta group. And that becomes his thing. That's pretty much his theme. He dresses like the enemy and blends in, then hits them when they're least expecting it. Anna Holt, a roboticist. She's wearing that chest plate because Soviet Superwoman told me that in one of the adventures, she ended up getting hit so hard it almost killed her. So now she's kind of stuck having some kind of life support system keeping her going. Robotic sonic resonance. It's actually a nice mix, although I had to figure out a way to fit the medicine pool into it because the repair power for robotics just does not recharge fast enough. But sonic resonance is a great way to make your robots much more resilient. Teresa Keller. I really dislike this character, and I'm the one that made her. Super Strength Regeneration Brute. She is a raging racist, and I hate writing her. Except when I have somebody beating the crap out of her. Jessica Gottfried. Teresa's best friend. And a complete loon. She's developed an unhealthy crush on the Red Doctor. Now she serves as his nurse. One of my Claws characters. Like I said, I've got problems with Claws. In their effort to avoid looking like Wolverine, they stuck with how Nicoti claws are actually used, which is a lot of stabbing. Not so much clawing. Still, Claws has a couple of powers in it that I felt really suited a cyborg character. Hatchet Hands. I came up with this character on one of my previous attempts at writing a novel. He wound up being emblematic of one of my problems writing that particular book. Because he just comes in out of nowhere as a hired gun for the enemy group. He has a fight with Draven and Solo and gets beaten. He and his buddy, Plasma Cannon. There's just a couple of more on cyborgs. Plasma Cannon, Beam Rifle, Invulnerability, Sentinel. It's not a terrible mix, it's just not that great. Invulnerability is, despite how good a power set it is surprisingly boring. Ephraim Havernaff, Isaac's father. This guy combines the abilities of Isaac and Sheldon and is a much more terrifying character. Sheldon uses gravity control, Isaac uses time manipulation. Putting the two together on another controller character is oddly terrifying. Red Roku. I decided to make a player character out of Kyokujitsu's Oni. So, his name is Red 6. He's a demon. He's got a contractual obligation to make sure that Kyokujitsu is safe. And that's all he really cares about in regards to Wellington acquisitions. Billy Tungsten is also a member of Wellington Acquisitions, but only because Franklin Wellington recognizes talent when he sees it. I was really hoping I could find a pair of pickaxes for dual blades, but unfortunately that's not an option. So this guy is typically using just a pair of battle axes painted black. Oh well. Still, plays well enough. Angela Green. She is the current head of the American offices of the New Horizons Syndicate. She was an agent who had to attack the backyard wrestling characters. And in order to do so, she got herself superpowers and found out what kinds of pervs the people she was working with were. She is not happy with her proportions. Fortunately, she has psionic melee and willpower to help her kick the crap out of anybody that gives her grief over it. David Ingraham is her partner, and she likes him because he's a cold, unfeeling cyborg. So he doesn't give her grief about her appearance. Justin Steele. When I first made this character, he was a mercenary's poison mastermind. I found that suited another character better, so I switched the two. I did not remake them. I painstakingly transferred resources between the two of them, changed their names, and then changed their outfits. That wiped out a huge amount of my influence. Now, Justin had plenty of free costume tokens so that I could do that. The other guy Thaddeus Hawthorne did not. He was very expensive to change. I hate Thaddeus Hawthorne. He's caused me so much pain. Anyway, the story for Justin, he's based off of another one of our backyard wrestling characters. Said character was usually used as a referee. I figured that I would make him a mastermind, give him a gang of troops to keep him protected. It's sort of a tribute, because that particular referee, he got knocked around a lot. So now, as a mastermind, he's a real badass. His backstory is that his mercenaries are cheap cyborgs that were decommissioned, so he keeps them around because, hey, they work well. They work well for him. They follow orders, and they're good shots. He uses pain domination, the same as the Red Doctor. The idea being that it's advanced technology, similar to what Nestor Dirge is using, or anybody that uses empathy. Pain domination is like the evil version of empathy. Matt Jones, based off of another one of the backyard wrestlers. The idea is that he was the first one to get magic powers for their backyard wrestling group. He was looking for that edge. So he swiped an artifact from Cortland Simmons' dad and ended up gaining scales and the ability to set himself on fire. These, of course, are all in-jokes. Matt, if you're watching this, yes, this character is based on you. And the joke is entirely the fact that you were the first one to get yourself set on fire. God, I can't believe we did that. Even weirder that we pulled it off. Back in the Paragon days, this character was a stone melee fiery aura brute. Kind of a weird mix. It's more... Stone melee is more of a utility attack set. But when I saw what Savage Melee could do, I was like, okay, I'm going to make Matt Jones as a Savage Melee Fire Aura Brute. The idea is that he's kind of turning into a mythical drake. So he gets claws and scales and just really reptilian. Pasha Turovich, Eric Taras Khabarov, Eric Shkuratov, Semyon Filipov, Pavel Sobolev, Luka Essen, David Yakovich, and Vasily Turnovich. So, Angel Falls writing. I came up with an idea for a foe for Soviet Superwoman. A Spetsnaz crew that got lied to and told that the Soviet Superwoman was a dire threat against the Russian Federation. So they were commanded to take an experimental Hind aircraft, Hind gunship, and attack her using a channel gun and experimental missiles. Now, anybody who knows any kind of story like this, whether it's Superman or Wonder Woman, knows that it doesn't end well for the helicopter. It especially didn't end well for the Spetsnaz crew. And they wound up being scapegoated that they had just gone rogue and stolen sensitive equipment. And it was all pinned on them. Well, the New Horizons Syndicate hates to see good talent go to waste, so they sent another character, Biosurge, to go rescue them. So, I wound up with a bunch of characters that I could experiment with some more. Pasha, dual pistols, devices. It's a good mix. He was the pilot. Taras. He's basically operating power armor. Energy blast, sonic resonance, corruptor. Eric Skuratov, battle axe, shield defense, brute. He has an axe and a shield. Just slices and dices anybody in his way. Semyon Filipov, much like Eric, does the same thing, just with bigger weapons. Let me go through the rest of these guys. Vasily Shtunovich uses the assault rifle and bioarmor, although the idea for him is that he uses nanotech to produce the assault rifle. Like it's all supposed to be his armor that's just slinging projectiles at enemies. David Yakovich is an interesting character. He's the one where I found out how martial assault works and ended up causing me to remake Johnny Knack. He does electrical control, and the idea being he's firing shurikens and lightning. Luca Essen, robotics and force fields. We got a friend who does that on another one of his characters. It's a really good mix. All of his robots are named after Battletech mechs. And Pavel Sobolev, an archer. In much the same way that Roland is an archery trick arrow corruptor, Pavel is an archery tactical arrow blaster. A lot of the same powers between the two of them. However, there are some things that Roland has that Pavel doesn't, and Roland's abilities have a much higher effect. This character, Magus Carlo, he actually works with Wellington Acquisitions. I just couldn't fit him in with the rest of them. And he is an interdimensional wizard who is hunting down Petrothrax. He does not like that she's reacquired her body. Riot 99 got tired of just going around beating people up, and that being his only way of being a hero. So, he decided instead to start up his own group, Global First Response. And so the characters who are here tend to prefer to help people. Spetsnaz characters usually end up making perimeter, make sure everybody's safe. Riot 99 likes to fight fires. Vic Vector. I am so angry that Cyberpunk 2077 has a character named Victor Vector. I already had this character dreamed up in my head. The idea is he's got the secondary power that Cyclops has, or the main power of Hawkeye or Bullseye. Vector sense. The ability to have a projectile and just instinctively know where it's going to go when he throws it. He also uses that ability to help better control his balance. And he's also a roboticist, but more in the vein of making little drones. In my book, he's a YouTube star. But there are a lot of heroes that are YouTube stars. It ends up being a source of friction between him and Kip, because Kip thinks that heroes should be helping people, they shouldn't be seeking fame. Where Victor is trying to get more awareness as to what they do. Widespread superheroics is a very new thing in the setting. Biosurge is he was born out near Chernobyl. He wound up getting mutated as a result. And he's got radiation abilities. Ah. He likes to help people. He is, despite being a radiation blast, radiation corruptor, which radiation is heavy on the debuffs. It has only a few buffs and not very good healing. But I also put the medicine pool on this character, so he is able to support the team way better than your average radiation character can. Henry Mouth is a wasteland survivor. He waged a guerrilla war against the Tikrit in the ruins of his city. He's a thugs traps mastermind, one of the best masterminds you can be, because thugs allows you to summon up 20 people armed with pistols and bats who just mob your enemies until they despawn, and they stick around for a long, long time. And Rachel, she's another character. She used to work for the New Horizons Syndicate. She's a character I made for Angel Falls that I wish I could have done a little more with. An invulnerability, Titan Weapons Tanker. Titan Weapons because she's supposed to be super strong. Mariah Fawcett, another sniper blaster. I feel like I should explain some more about this character. She hunts the most dangerous game. She's an evil, rich woman. We've gotten into the Black Lake Solutions characters. These people suck. These people are awful. Well, a lot of them are. Mariah Fawcett, I wrote as a character, introduced her getting ready to hunt down mutated homeless people that had been forcibly mutated by a cabal of rich people. She wound up fighting the regulator instead because he put all those poor bastards out of their misery and then waged an assault on said cabal. She was one of the few survivors because she was already armored up and armed. And when she realized that the fight was not going their way, she got the hell out of there. She runs Iron Lake. Black Lake. Jeez. The Dexter series keeps creeping in whenever I think of this group's name. Then, of course, there's Iron Jackal, which also screws with my head. This guy is the son of a used car dealership mogul. He didn't like being a big fish in a small town. So he went out to make something of himself after the aliens attacked. Or at least that's his story. In reality, he had already set the wheels in motion before the aliens invaded. He worked as a mercenary. He worked for that same cabal. He sold out one of his high school classmates to be used as a test subject. This guy. He sold this guy out. Turned him into. They gave him a serum that made him a regenerator, and then they tested weaponry on him. Lucas does not like Chuck Reynolds. And Chuck Reynolds doesn't really care. He thinks that all of the guys that he knew in high school are beneath him. New Jack is a cyborg. He's the guy who killed the regulator's son. When the regulator caught up to him, he shot him dead center in the chest so he could watch him die. The Coalition of the Blood, the cabal of rich people, decided to bring Jack back. They slapped him full of experimental cyber technology and unleashed him on the people who had betrayed them, namely Jack's own family. He killed his father and his sisters by burning them alive, or at least he tried to. And then he had to go back in with a Desert Eagle and do the job himself because, wouldn't you know it, his dad actually used himself to smother the flames. One of his sisters survived. And she's looking for revenge. Alexandra Dominguez is a sorceress who is trying to get a hold of her son. Her son was adopted by Sarah and Joe. I have not made a character of her son. I don't even know where to begin. However, Sarah and Joe are not letting this evil bitch who sacrificed her right hand for power and is clearly willing to sacrifice her own son for more get her claws on him. Thaddeus Hawthorne. He's the reason why Snugglepurr looks the way she does. And she's the reason why he's missing an eye. I'm going to go ahead and let you put two and two together on that one. Meredith Terrell is Thaddeus Hawthorne's associate. She's a Beast Mastery Electrical Affinity Mastermind, which means that she summons wolves and panthers and electrocutes them to get them to do what she wants. Yeah. These are horrible people. Pele Pete. A guy who is slowly turning into a walking volcano. He's angry. He hates everybody. He's on fire when he's attacking. Fire melee, stone armor. It's a good mix. John Paulson, a necromancer who is under the delusion that he resurrected his lost family. Tingrin, cyborg for hire. Megaton Crunch, big mutant for hire. Seriously, this is about as much storyline as I've got for these guys. When a character is so clearly a two-dimensional asshole, I don't have much more to say about them. Sometimes bad guys are just bad guys. Gatorman, I can't believe this name was available. I just got the idea of making a bio-armor savage melee tanker and was like, hey, you know what? I should name him Gatorman. And the name was available, so I ran with it. This guy, as well as Black Dog and Chesix, are characters I have in mind for the book, where they show up to attack some of my characters who are not so well powered as Randall or Kipland. These guys have a surprising amount of personality. Maybe it's the fact that they're not depraved lunatics the way the previous batch were. They just know their lot in life. They're big, they're ugly, they're not super bright, so they know that people are going to try to use them. So they're just going to try to get as much money as they can out of the deal. And Tiberius Ashwin is a bit of a standout. He's just a powerful wizard who just doesn't want to die. He's not looking for wealth or fame. He's not looking for world domination because he sees that as a sucker's game. He just wants to keep living. Keep seeing how the world goes. Manticrax, Brashak, Zorukots. These three are bug characters, members of a group that's not mine. I'll have to talk that over with Unholy and see if he'd be willing to let me show off what his base looks like in that respect, because that kills my appetite. Dr. Zebuzat is also a member of that group. He's just fucking bizarre. And finally, we have, again, Ardent Protector, Blue Freedom, Argent Justice, the Regulator, Jeffrey, and Toycraft. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and move Eisenherz and Night Wraith over here. Let's see, she's actually there. Jeffrey also is not, he's technically not a hero in much the same way that Alfred is technically not a hero. Even though we see them throw down, they don't go in for the fame or glory. So, there you have it. My characters. All 119 of them. And since I took so long explaining this, I am going to go ahead and take a break, get some lunch, get a drink for myself, and go ahead and close this recording, and I will start up the arc once I've recovered. That took a lot longer than I expected it to. So, I'll see you in a little bit. Have a good one.